It's time for Blessed to Play on EWTN Radio, uncovering the role that faith plays in the lives of sports professionals from around the country. And now, here's your host, Ron Meyer.
Meyer, score!
One of the goals of collegiate athletic coaches is to win a national championship. My guest today won a national championship in her first year of coaching lacrosse at Benedictine College. She won an NAIA national championship. Her team provided some stellar moments during that year, but here to talk about this unbelievable achievement and what sets her apart in her everyday life is Clare Hanson. Clare, welcome to Blessed to Play.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks for having me. Happy to be on.
So before we get into this national championship season, your journey into lacrosse is quite interesting. In fact, you didn't play lacrosse in high school. You played a lot of other sports. But tell us what attracted you to the sport of lacrosse.
Yeah, so I grew up in super small town, Kansas. I think I had maybe seen lacrosse on ESPN randomly, and I think it was probably even a men's game, not a women's game. And for people who don't know about lacrosse, the men's and women's games are super different. So, yeah, I think I always wanted to go to Benedictine, so it's really the only place I applied. And so once I got to campus, I was just very competitive and wanted something that was a little bit more than intramurals. So I believe on my visit, they mentioned something about lacrosse being a club sport. So, and they got to travel we went to Oklahoma State and Creighton and these places. So it just felt more intense. And so I almost didn't want to play, though, because you wear skirts in lacrosse, and that kind of didn't feel hardcore to me. But I quickly got over that and, started playing. Great teammates. My teammates were my first coaches that kind of taught me how to play. And, my sophomore year, it became a varsity sport on the men's and women's side. So all of us club kids kind of became that first team.
So while migrating from the club level to an intercollegiate sport, I mean, the learning curve that you had to adapt to, but you became quite proficient at the sport. In fact, while playing for Benedictine, you were a first-team all-conference midfielder and a two-time captain in your junior and senior seasons. You built the foundation of the program, or helped build a foundation, and did quite well with that. So you really fell in love with the game of lacrosse, and then you wanted to teach the game of lacrosse. So when did those aspirations to coach and to help others become the best lacrosse player they could be come to fruition in you?
Yeah, so I think I always wanted to coach. I thought I would maybe be more of a basketball, volleyball, softball coach, the sports that I kind of grew up playing. And I taught sixth grade for a year after graduating, and so like being in the school environment, I taught history, so I loved history, but also I knew I could kind of coach as well. So while I was teaching, at the district I was at, they didn't allow us to coach at the school because they wanted us to get acclimated with the teaching your first year. But then I ended up in the spring coaching lacrosse at St. James Academy, which is a high school in Kansas City. And, just found myself really thinking about that team and thinking about how I could help them get better, not just like as players during practice, but doing all the cultural, how to become a better person, and all of those things that I wanted to do. And I just wished I had more time with them. So just through that experience, I just thought, I wish I was getting paid to coach lacrosse. And then I thought about my head coach in college and how that's what she was doing. So, I kind of talked to her and some other people and decided that might be better for me in the long run.
Blessed to Play, Ron Meyer chatting today with Clare Hanson. She's the women's lacrosse coach at Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas. And so you were a graduate assistant at Benedictine, coaching lacrosse players, obviously. And then Amanda McGee took a job who was the head coach at Rhode Island College. So this opened up the spot of head coach, and you got the job. So here we go. Let's talk about this historic season. What led up to the national champion? Coming in as a first-year coach, you had to develop the program. You impart your own philosophies, your methodology. Talk about the growth of the team and what you were trying to achieve before the season started.
Yeah, I think Coach McGee was such a good mentor. From the moment that I came back as graduate assistant, she really let me do a lot. And so, I was heavily involved with the team for 2.5 years before she ended up leaving. But yeah, I think like we were doing most of the same things, and I was able to really actually coach. It wasn't like I was running around just getting her coffee. She really invested in me as a coach. And so while the players, she was and is a beloved member of our program forever. So they were certainly sad to see her go, but we also knew that we had a good chance and a great team, and so our mission was kind of the same. But honestly, that roster in 2022 was arguably the least talented we had in 4 years. So certainly in the fall, you would have asked the seniors that we had on the team if we would have won a national championship. They would have thought you were nuts, just because you looking at it on paper and it didn't make sense. So, yeah, I think we got really better. We got way better over the course of the season, and especially those upperclassmen, they kind of figured out halfway through that they had to not feel sorry for themselves, that maybe the younger players weren't as where they wanted them to be, and it was more about how do I get these people there. And so once they kind of made that decision of, okay, how do I help them get there, those guys really started to shine, and we became a much better overall team. So we went on spring break and won a really tight game. I think there was like 10 seconds left, and we scored like 2 goals. We were down 1, scored 2 goals, and won that game. And that's a game that got delayed by like 2 hours. It was pouring rain. It was epic. And winning that game, I think, made everyone believe that we could beat anybody, because we beat Life University, and they were one of the top teams in the country at the time.
So they bought into Coach Hanson, and then the team performed well, and you gave one example of that. And they made it to the national tournament of Southfield, Michigan. I'll take you back there to 2022, the tournament where everybody's, they're gunning for the top trophy, all be a national champion, that coveted possession. Talk about the tournament itself and how it went, and how you got your team ready to perform during that tournament.
Yeah. So the whole story of that tournament, there's so many great storylines. We came in the 6th seed. I don't think a lot of people were thinking about us or really saw us as much of a threat. I mean, we had beaten that one team earlier in the year. But the year prior, in 2021, we had absolutely got demolished by Lawrence Tech, who we would play in the final in 2022. So for our team, really, we just wanted to win the first round. All we were thinking about was the first round and playing well. I mean, not even really thinking about winning. We just didn't want to play bad. We just wanted to not be embarrassed like we sort of were the year before. And so I was probably the most nervous before that game, and all of our players were talking to them about it after. We're super nervous for that game. But we came out, played really well. We beat a team, Cumberland, the University of Cumberland out of Kentucky, who had beat us. That was the last game that we played before the 2020 season was canceled for COVID. So we sort of avenged that. And then the next round was SCAD Savannah, who we had actually never beat. They had beaten us numerous years in the national tournament. They seemed to knock us out every single year except for 2021. So winning that game was huge for the alums, and kind of just getting the monkey off our back. Also in that game, at the end of the first quarter, one of the best players on our team, Natalie Wechter, tore her ACL right at the end of the first quarter, and she's our leading scorer, our leading draw taker. So, I remember it was also raining during that game, but I just remember, the team coming to a timeout right after she had hurt, and she was hurt, and she was behind the tent, so they couldn't see her. And they just looked like flustered because she was out, and I just said to them, I think verbatim, I said, "Sis is okay." And you could see like the relief on their face, and I didn't know if she was okay, but I knew she was going to play because that's the kind of kid she is. So, of course, we didn't know her ACL was torn at the time, but she was not as limber as she normally was. But she did play in the rest of that game. She played in the national championship game. She had a goal after she tore her ACL, and she had like 3 assists in the national championship game. So we won that Final Four by the skin of our teeth, and then in the championship game also avenged, that 2021 loss to Lawrence Tech with the national championship. So, and that team was undefeated. It was on their home field. Natalie Wechter's brother, who was a Army Ranger, was at the game, and he did our pregame national championship speech. The families are super involved with our team, so when an Army Ranger is pumping you up, they're ready to roll for the national championship game.
Some great stories there. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to talk about the faith life of this national champion head coach of Benedictine College women's lacrosse. Clare Hanson is with us. Don't go away. You're listening to Blessed to Play.
He was a scholar, a preacher, a Capuchin Franciscan, and a defender of Christendom.
Matthew Bunsen and the Doctors of the Church.
St. Lawrence of Brindisi was one of the most respected preachers in the 17th century, but he also helped raise an army against the Ottoman Turks when they invaded Hungary in 1601. He led the troops to victory against the Turks, carrying only a crucifix. He was declared a Doctor of the Church in 1959.
To find out more about the Doctors of the Church, visit EWTN.com and click on Catholicism.
EWTN Radio is all over social media. All your favorite programs are available right now, on demand for you to listen or download. Check us out on SoundCloud. Look for EWTN Radio. Remember, EWTN is everywhere.
This is EWTN, Catholic Radio.
Welcome back to Blessed to Play. Ron Meyer joined today by Clare Hanson, and if you listen to the first half of the show, she's a pretty good coach. In fact, in her inaugural season with Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas, she won a national title with her women's lacrosse team in Southfield, Michigan. What a story that is. But there's some other stories that we haven't talked about outside the athletic framework, and that is the spiritual journey of Clare, but also how she integrated her faith life with this team that she coaches at Benedictine. So, Clare, I know you're a devout Catholic and you bring your faith with you, especially as a head coach, but faith was always part of your coaching philosophy, and you integrated that while coaching your team there at Benedictine.
Yeah, I think that's a huge reason why I love being at Benedictine, is I get to have that be an active part of who I am and get to share that. So, and it really started when I was a player. I had some really great teammates who, again, coming from the club team, everybody sort of was at Benedictine already, so they were Benedictine kids. They sort of had that good faith life foundation. So I can remember, before a conference tournament our very first year as a program. We really had no idea if we were going to be able to win or not. We knew it was going to be tight, and the winner of that conference tournament would go on to the national tournament. So I just remember all of us on the team going to adoration before that, and we had really great team Bible studies. So I was really just formed again by the people that were around me, and it's always been just a really big part of our program. So it's cool to continue that.
Now, I know you have a number of powerful spiritual stories from that 2022 National Championship Tournament team. Maybe you could share one of those with us.
Yeah, I think the Rosary seemed to be involved in a lot of these stories, but the first one is, again, we were so nervous for that first game, and I didn't have an assistant coach. It was really just me, and I didn't know what to do with that nervous energy. I was like, I can't call anyone. The game was soon. We were about to get on the bus, but there wasn't enough time, and I didn't want to go talk to the players. I don't want to put that nervous energy on them. So I just pulled out the Rosary and started praying and pacing around my hotel room. And then when we won, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this every single time. So I did that before every game. And then at the the final game, I had it in my pocket. And this was a Rosary that I got in Rome, and it was blessed by Pope Benedict XVI, one of those that smells like roses. So I love holding it. But yeah, it was in my pocket, and we had got a penalty. So when you get a penalty in lacrosse, somebody has to come off the field. So we were a man down, and it was tight, and we were honestly, it was sloppy, and everybody's turning the ball over. Everybody's tired, so I just pulled that thing out and just held it in my hand and, prayed in the last few seconds. So,
Blessed to play Ron Meyer chatting today with Clare Hanson. Once again, she's the coach of the Benedictine women's lacrosse team, won a national championship in 2022. And what's interesting is that after the national championship win, the team attended Mass. So you come together spiritually after this great win. Why don't you talk about that cohesiveness spiritually amongst the team and yourself?
Yeah, I actually, I got this idea from our women's soccer team. My senior year in college, my best friends played soccer, so they went and played in the national championship game in Orange Beach, Alabama. So some of my friends and I drove down there to see them play, and they actually lost in that game, and they went to Mass right after the game. So I thought, win or lose, Mass is going to be the greatest thing that we can do. So scheduled that to happen, and it seemed like, some people are like, oh, really? That's what you want to do? But I was like, yeah, that's exactly, no matter the result, that's what needs to happen. So, nobody showered. Everybody was still in their, championship T-shirts, and we went straight to Mass. Thankfully, we're in a super nice hotel that had a great big area for us, and after the Mass, we had a nice little party, and it was cool. Not, everybody on our team is in a different spot spiritually, but just to have all the families there as well is a great way to celebrate.
Now, after you are on such a high, and then you have to come down from that high, and now you have to coach and, start up the next season, has this changed you in any way, winning a national championship? Are you going to do anything differently, or is it you're just going to be Claire and do the thing that you've been doing the whole time?
I think you have to evolve every single year in what you do. And, we said this even in 2022, that if we didn't win, then we still would have felt very fulfilled by, the relationships that we have, the culture that we have, and just the way that we had, really done everything we could do to be successful that year. And so many players on our team said that. If we lost in the Final Four, or in the national championship game, we would have felt the same, which is really easy to say when you did win. But last year in 2023, we lost in the quarterfinal, and I still felt very fulfilled as far as, how everyone treated each other and just the culture and transforming lives and those things. But, of course, you still want to win, and we have to evolve, and we have to do more, and we have to get better, and there's still that desire, but there's a dual attitude of, doing your best and being fulfilled with doing your best and having good relationships.
How about some of the players on the team? I know when I played sports, obviously you have leaders that show up. Some of them are named captain, as you were, Claire, right? But have spiritual leaders come forward now on the team to maybe stress the importance of how much spirituality plays a part in the makeup, in the cohesiveness, and the chemistry of Benedictine College women's lacrosse?
Oh, for sure. We always have spiritual leaders, and that's something that I sort of look for in recruiting as well. Who are those people going to be down the line who are good Benedictine College fits? And, I can think back to my time as a player. We always had those spiritual leaders, and certainly on our team. It's interesting. Sometimes we have people in sort of every class. We have senior captains who are great spiritual leaders. Last year it was Claudia Garcia, who was a senior. But we also have younger ones who, that's sort of their niche for the team. And it's interesting. I think that's what's great about our team too, because it doesn't necessarily, sometimes those kids aren't the ones who are playing a lot, but they still have such an important role. And that's something that we always emphasize. Even if you're not on the field, everybody's got a really important role. Certainly, we want people who are selfless, humble. But I think it's interesting, different positions on the field have different attributes. And I talked with our women's soccer coach about this a lot. I can't remember the name of the test, but they do it in the NFL, and like Patrick Mahomes is an Eagle, and Eagles are very selfless, but they also have a high degree of confidence, and they know how to work with people. But then, like a forward in soccer, for instance, might be like a rocket, so huge ego. They're a big risk taker. So just like the personality of each position, I think is really important to kind of figure out. So I when I say humble, it's like I still want my attackers and the people who are going to score to have big egos, because I think you have to. And the best players that we've had have that. But they're also really good teammates and, want the best for the whole team as a whole.
So, Claire, what you're saying is you have to be a bit of a psychologist, too, to be a coach in sports.
Yeah, you really got to figure out, I wish I could give them all a test before, they come to campus or in recruiting, but, I don't have $1 million to spend on that, or else I totally would.
So tell us about the routine. How did you get your team to perform at such an optimal level? Is it, the strength training to the discipline? Can you break it down into a few takeaways on how you get your team ready to perform at an optimal level?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the strength training. I think we have such a great, staff for strength and conditioning, for athletic training, and the communication and the collaboration with those people has really been incredible. Even in 2022, I learned a lot, because when we went on spring break, we win that huge game against Life. We had a day of rest in between, and then we played another really good team. But we were in shape, but I could tell that we were super fatigued. And I go to my strength and conditioning coach, and he's like, okay, well, what did they eat? How did they recover? So we really upped our ability to recover when we went to the national championship. and that paid off hugely. We kind of changed what they were eating. We provided them more stuff versus just letting them eat what was in the hotel. And then, really invested in some recovery materials, which cost some money, but, at Benedictine, they want you to have the best that is available. So, yeah, the collaboration between strength and conditioning and athletic training is huge, and just the mentality that the weight room also builds. I think we certainly work the hardest of anybody in the NAI in terms of how we're conditioning and lifting and all of that. And when you know that and you go into a game, I mean, the psychological warfare, you're going to win that. So
battle tested for sure. Well, what a historic season 2022 was for Clare Hanson and Benedictine College women's lacrosse, winning a national championship in their first year coaching. And as you can tell, it's much more than just winning a national championship, but really forming her players to be good, solid people, incorporating her spiritual life in her coaching philosophies. Claire, thanks so much. That is a great, great story. Unbelievable. First-year coach winning a national championship. I haven't heard a story like that before, so this is a first for me. But much continued success at Benedictine, and I'm sure you might win some more. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. Thanks so much for coming on Blessed to Play.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Blessed to Play fans, check us out on the web at blessedtoplay.com. That's blessed2play.com. You can like us on Facebook and hit us up on Twitter at Blessed to Play. For Clare Hanson, I'm Ron Meyer. Thanks so much for joining us right here on Blessed to Play.
You've been listening to Blessed to Play with host Ron Meyer on the EWTN Global Catholic Network. If you have a question or comment about today's show, feel free to email us at info@blessedtoplay.com. That's blessed, 2, play.com. You can also connect with the show on the web at www.blessedtoplay.com. Again, that's blessed, 2, play.com. Join us again next time for Blessed to Play on the EWTN Global Catholic Network.